The Innovators Network.
Welcome to the Killer Innovation Show, the longest continuously produced podcast in history. Each week, Phil McKinney brings you the insights and strategies to amplify your creativity and innovation skills. Here's your host, Phil McKinney.
Welcome to this week's Killer Innovations podcast. We are still on the road. I'm able to, during this downtime, this little summer break I'm taking, to catch up on a bunch of reading. And some of that reading is what triggered this week's episode. I don't know about you, but I get sick and tired of reading all of these articles, hype articles on new startups and some new CEO who's, doing amazing things in whatever industry or segment they're operating in. And you're reading these stories and you're trying to figure out what is real and what is hype. And when I sat back and really thought about it, this what I would call innovation journalism is in absolute chaos. The pace that these journalists now have to operate, how many stories they have to pump out, 3, 4, 5 a day, leaving no time to really think about these innovations, think about these new things coming to market, the implications of it, potential negative consequences of these new innovations. And so this week's episode of the podcast, I want to cover what I call the failure of innovation journalism. And it's taking a look at the whole space of journalists that cover innovation. Now, innovation can be everything from technology to healthcare to social innovations to business model innovations. It's any attempt by journalists to try to cover the space of innovation. Where's the failure? Where is the challenges that are coming about? And so hopefully you find this week's episode interesting. I am recording this from the mobile studio here on the road. We're trying to keep up with all of the shows, but this is one that I wanted to sit down, get recorded, and get it to you. I think it opens up an interesting conversation about what could we do differently about innovation journalism. If people, policymakers, governments, society are going to make decisions as to what innovations are ones that they should be planning for and get excited about, or ones they should be maybe skeptical of, this is the conversation point. What and how do journalists present that clearly, transparently, with facts so that people can make informed decisions? That is the topic for today's show. But before we jump into this week's episode, got that favor to ask. Can you follow, like, and share? Can you follow on social media? We post throughout the week things that we may come across that we find interesting. Like this episode, help us make it easier for other people to find this episode, and share it. If you've got specific people who you think would benefit from hearing this episode, then send them the link. Let them know about it, promote it, share it on your social media. That all helps, and I greatly, greatly appreciate it. And with that, let's hop into this week's episode.
This episode is sponsored by Zoom. With Zoom, you can streamline your communication, collaboration, and creativity all in one place. Zoom is the market-leading platform that provides video meetings, voice, webinars, and chat across desktops, phones, tablets, and conference room systems. To learn more about Zoom and sign up for your free account, visit killerinnovations.com/Zoom.
It is not an exaggeration to say that innovation journalism is one of the most important, if not the most important type of journalism in the modern world. In a rapidly changing world where new innovations and ideas are constantly emerging, it is essential for journalists to explain and communicate these changes to the public. Unfortunately, innovation journalism is in a state of crisis. It is reported that only 3% of American newspapers have full-time science or technology reporters, and another 3% have part-time science or technology reporters. This is despite the fact that, according to the Pew Research Center, More than half of Americans say they want more news about science and technology. The problem is not just the lack of reporters, it's also a lack of understanding of what innovation journalism is and how it should be done. Innovation journalism is frequently regarded as simply covering the newest and latest gadgets or Silicon Valley startups. This leads to a lack of accurate representation of innovation in the media. Too frequently, journalists and media platforms sensationalize new discoveries for the sake of increasing traffic or prejudiced in favor or against a specific innovation. Add to this the hero worship of innovators, which is unfortunately all too common, and you have a recipe for misunderstanding. Innovation journalism should be about explaining how and why the world is changing and providing a context for those changes. It should be about exploring the implications of new innovations and ideas and shining a light on the people who are making them happen. Unfortunately, too often it is none of these things. Too often it is simply a regurgitation of press releases or a glorified form of marketing. That is not a failure just of journalism, but of innovation itself. The result is a discrepancy between how innovations are reported and their effect on society. The vast majority of innovation stories focus on the novelty rather than the utility or usefulness. Or worse, it doesn't cover the risk and the potential unintended consequences from these innovations. This can often lead to distortions or inaccuracies in how the public understands innovation and its potential impact. Now, this is not to imply that there isn't good innovation journalism out there. There are certainly some outstanding examples, but they are far too rare. The failure of innovation journalism has real-world consequences. It stymies public understanding of potentially transformative innovations, promotes misinformation, and can distort policymaking. For journalism to truly serve the public interest, it must do better when it comes to innovation. Otherwise, we risk sleepwalking into a future where the potential benefits of new technologies are not realized and their risks are not adequately mitigated. Now, there are many examples of innovation journalism failures. But given the focus on speed in today's social media-driven news cycle, innovation journalism today emphasizes reporting on new and exciting technologies at a faster and faster pace. However, this type of coverage can often lead to oversimplifications and sensationalism, which is what we see in many of the failures of innovation journalism. So let's talk through a few examples. Let's start with Theranos. Early stories hailed Theranos as an exciting new technology that was going to revolutionize the blood testing industry. In addition to the hype around the technology, the hero worship from journalists was on full display with Theranos CEO Elizabeth Holmes. She was often described as the youngest self-made billionaire and was even featured on the cover of Time magazine with the headline, quote, "The next Steve Jobs," end quote. The reality, however, was far more complicated. As more journalists began to take a closer look at Theranos, it became clear that the company was not living up to its promises. The Wall Street Journal brought to light that Theranos was misleading investors and patients about the capabilities of its technology. Theranos was eventually forced to shut down, and Elizabeth Holmes was convicted on multiple counts of fraud. The lesson from the Theranos story is that innovation journalism needs to be more than just positive coverage of new technologies. It needs to be willing to ask the tough questions and investigate the claims. A second example is Lilly Robotics. The 2014 collapse of Lilly Robotics is another example of a high-profile startup that failed to deliver on its promises to consumers and journalists. In May 2015, Lilly launched the Lilly camera, an autonomous flying camera that leverages GPS computer vision to capture stills and videos of customers while they're traveling using a wearable tracking device. The company obtained approximately 60,000 pre-orders, raising over $34 million in pre-sale revenue. According to the Wall Street Journal, the drone was one of the, quote, gadgets that will define life in 2016, end quote. Then the problem started. The creators stated that the original February 2016 pre-order release date would be delayed until the summer of 2016. Then, in January 12th of 2017, Lilly emailed all of their clients to inform them that the camera could not be manufactured and that they would receive a refund. Lawsuits ensued. The company quickly filed for Chapter 11. In fact, on the same day, the San Francisco District Attorney filed a complaint against Lilly claiming the firm misled consumers. According to the lawsuit, Lilly faked demonstration videos using products from other manufacturers. In fact, using competitors' products to create demonstration videos. Lilly Robotics had raised over $34 million in venture capital and was featured in several prominent publications, including the New York Times, before it was forced to shut down. These examples highlight how innovation journalism can often fail to provide accurate and thorough coverage of new technologies. In many cases, the stories are simply too good to be true. As a result, readers are misled and make poor decisions based on the information they are given. If we are to truly understand and grapple with the changes happening in the world around us, we need journalists who are willing to able to go beyond the superficial and provide real insight. We desperately need true innovation journalism. I believe that accurate, transparent, and unbiased reporting on innovation can empower individuals, organizations, governments, and society to bring about positive change that innovation can enable. By having a set of guidelines, innovation journalists can produce better quality stories and avoid the mistakes of the past. Here is just a starter list of guidelines that I would toss out there for conversation. First, avoid hype. Innovation journalism should be grounded in reality and avoid overselling an innovation. Hype only leads to disappointment and can damage the credibility of everyone involved with the story. Seek diverse perspectives. When reporting on new innovations, it's important to seek a range of voices and perspectives. This includes those who are critical of the innovation and also those who stand to benefit from it. Get both sides of the story. Consider the implications. New innovations often come with a range of implications, both positive and negative. Innovation journalists should consider these implications and help readers understand the potential risks and the rewards. Go beyond the press release. Innovation journalism should go beyond simply regurgitating information from press releases. This means doing your own research, talking to experts, and seeing the innovation in action. Importantly, verify the claims. Innovation journalists need to apply the famous President Reagan approach of trust but verify for any new innovation they are covering. This means verifying any claims and all claims made by the creators. Next, be transparent about your sources. Innovation journalism should be transparent. Share exactly who's providing the information so that the readers can discern and figure out the credibility of the information being presented, who do they trust, and therefore apply their own view based on the information being presented. Next, and this applies to all journalists, disclose conflicts of interest. If there are any conflicts of interest, they should be disclosed up front. This includes anything that might influence the journalist's objectivity, such as personal relationships, financial incentives, free demo products, free travel, whatever it is, those conflicts of interest should be disclosed. And then last but not least, label opinions as such. Opinions should be clearly labeled as such and differentiated from facts. This way, readers can make their own minds up about the merit of the arguments being presented. If innovation journalism is to have a future, it must move away from its current focus on gadgetry and startups, and instead embrace its role as a critical and informative force in society. It must provide context analysis, not just hype. It must ask hard questions and hold those in power accountable. Only then will it be able to truly fulfill its potential. Otherwise, it risks becoming nothing more than a buzzword or an empty promise. So, what are your thoughts about innovation journalism? Do you have a favorite story that you thought was maybe overhyped or that the journalist just didn't get it and didn't explain it well? What are your thoughts? I think there are some really good journalists out there that do a really good job of covering, but I understand the pressure they're under. The news organizations, the syndicators of their articles out there makes it hard for people to spend the time. The entire newspaper, digital media, publishing platforms, that whole business model is driven by heavy advertising, which again could lead to being biased, but it drives such a pace of the news cycle, the social media driven pace of putting news out there, being the first out there with the news, with breaking news, drives an approach that doesn't really mesh with the contemplative thinking that you need to apply when discerning which innovations are the ones that are going to have the biggest impact and the ones that you should be involved in, and also the ones that maybe you should avoid. So, interested in hearing your feedback, hearing your thoughts about it, and in getting your ideas on who do you follow? What journalists do you think do a really great job of covering innovation, covering the innovation space, and covering new and emerging areas? Love to hear about that. You can post over on any of the social media platforms we're on. You can start a conversation there, or you can just drop me an email, phil@pillarinnovations.com. And with that, I want to thank you for your time. And spending this is the most valuable asset you have is your time. And the fact that you've chosen to stay through and be right up here to the end of this week's show, I greatly and personally appreciate you committing your time to be with us today. So hopefully you found this interesting. Hopefully it gets you to think a little bit. If you are a journalist or you have an innovation story that you think should be told, I'd love to hear that. Let me know. We're working on some new areas that we'll be announcing here relatively soon that may give us a platform where all of us can share our own perspectives on innovation with a much wider audience. So with that, we're going to sign off as we continue our summer break here, and hopefully we'll be back and be ready to give you yet another show next week. So this week, go off, work on your ideas, go off there and change the world. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Podcasting nonstop since 2005, this has been the Killer Innovation Show on the Innovators Network.
This show is distributed by the Innovators Network. For more information and other great shows and content, visit theinnovators.network.